First off, good morning, everyone. I hope everybody and your loved ones are keeping safe and well. Apologies for the background. I don't usually have something like that. Not trying to be smart or anything, but I'm stuck in a hotel room in Yorkshire, and it doesn't look particularly pleasant with unmade beds in the background. This was intended as an opportunity to have a conversation, really, to bring members into a conversation around what BECBC is doing currently to position, and it's very much, and forgive me on this, it's very much about positioning in an economic sense in terms of where the markets are at. So none of this is about what we do in the social value space or the sort of other spaces that we operate in, but this is very much looking at it from a market point of view. So the first slide was just essentially to try to capture at a high level where the different markets are today, but also moving forward into the future. So as an Energy Coast business cluster, I guess it wouldn't surprise people to be aware that a significant proportion of what we look at and the engagements that we have are linked to the energy sector and players in the energy sector. That's not to say that's the totality of who we are, because we recognise that the membership is diverse and broad, lots of trading between members, lots of trading into different markets and so on and so forth. But you know, as a sort of an organisation playing into different larger anchor institutions, a lot of the energy goes in that direction. Clearly, with Sellafield Limited and NDA today, likes of EDF on their operating fleets, etc. But then, sort of looking forward, if you look into sort of 21 to 25 and beyond, we start to see a whole range of things that could be potential markets. Of course, none of these are a given, I guess, with the exception of a Sellafield or a BAE Systems or an NDA, where we know there are long-term programs of work. Clearly not a given to access that market, but a given that that market exists in one shape or form. But the sort of other areas, you know, are opportunities in development. So some of you might be aware of the Clean Energy Technology Park at Springfields over in Lancashire, or the more recent Moorside Clean Energy Hub, which is a very early development idea in development through EDF and a number of partners. We've also have things like offshore wind. So there's future rounds of offshore wind. Currently, the offshore wind in Cumbria, the large farms, are run by a Danish organisation called Ørsted. And I think it's fair to say to date that offshore wind hasn't been a sort of a massive opportunity for the UK. But I think, you know, there's an increasing focus on how those installations, how those opportunities can start to reap further benefits for their local communities. Hence why we'd start building some of those links into those organisations. We've obviously got TEPCO there. TEPCO are the organisation that run the Fukushima site in Japan, which in many respects is a similar type of opportunity to Sellafield in terms of multiple decades, multiple billions, challenges of remote handling and so on and so forth. And there are a number of businesses, both large and small, from Cumbria and from our organisation that have already accessed that market. You have things like the UK Atomic Energy Authority, which is around fusion, and there's been significant investments made by the government there into the long term. Fusion is an interesting one because it's always sort of thought of as never quite happening and always being somewhere in the future. But sort of beyond that scepticism around the science, you know, the government has been backing it up, has been putting multiple hundreds of millions of pounds into developing infrastructure, test facilities, and so on and so forth. And I think because of its sort of perceived lack of waste product at the end of it, it is seen as a really important R&D program for the UK. And of course, the UK is still a world leader, the world leader, because of the capability that we currently have here. There'll be those of you that are aware of Rolls-Royce and what Rolls-Royce and their nuclear team have been doing, lobbying for factory-built reactors. So that's small modular reactors built in the UK, on a UK design with a number of UK partners. Clearly, for an area like this, with lots of capability in that sort of space, we will be looking at positioning for those factories, or part of those factories, being a part of that supply chain. It's a market that has the potential, if you read sort of various different pieces on it, to be a multi-billion-pound market across the world. And for an area like us to be in a global supply chain like that is what we should be positioning for. And the only other one I guess I'd want to just sort of draw out, you can see those sort of logos yourself and ask any questions in the breakouts, is the UKRI, so UK Research and Innovation. It's an area within government that is continuing to get increasing spend. So it's where the Rolls-Royce work so far has been funded through, and there's an anticipation of increased funding in there to the tune of about £300 million plus, I believe. But UKRI is an area where multiple billions are spent and increasingly will be spent through that route moving forward to help the UK be more competitive. So we as an organisation are increasing our work to start to engage in and position on behalf of members in those areas. So this is really, really wordy, so forgive me, but I just wanted to sort of flag this up for people so they can see after some of the work that we're doing, some of the activities in the cluster. So just to try to pinpoint why we do some of the things we do, and hopefully show some sort of logic behind that if you look at those different markets that exist to us out there. So, just to sort of pick up a few of those points, clearly legacy decommissioning is incredibly important and will be incredibly important for a long time to come. I always remember something that Paul Foster used to say, which is chemistry never stops. So whilst in other sort of markets and different things happen, different funding decisions have to be made, we always know that there is that long-term program of work that needs to be done. So incredibly important that we position in the right way and have the right relationships. Obviously, that's with Sellafield Limited directly with the NDA, with other groups such as the Northern Nuclear Alliance and an entity called ISH, which may or may not be familiar to some of you folks, but that's a development of thinking coming out of Copeland Council with other partners, and it stands for the Integrated Solutions Hub. So we're trying to make sure that we have the right relationships with those guys there. There's a whole host of stuff happening in nuclear new build. Of course, now it remains to be seen where that goes moving forward, but significant opportunities there, of course, if that does move forward, if the government do sort of back that up and see nuclear as part of the net zero requirement. We have a place in the nuclear sector deal as a regional entity, and we also lead in the Nuclear Industry Council on the place agenda, so the regional agenda across there, so that voice is being heard in there. And we don't do that on our own. We work closely with other organisations, some of whom are on this call today, from different parts of the UK. So Nuclear Southwest, Wales Nuclear Forum, East of England Energy Group, etc. And the reason why we do that is because we want to ensure that we have routes to market on behalf of members, and we can help build those relationships. So, for example, if it's only at Sizewell, where there's going to be another gigawatt scale nuclear reactor, then actually we've started to build those relationships with the folks in the east of England. We can help our members access that market. There's a lot in here if you're looking at activities around something called a Cumbria Community Client Entity, and that's something that we've been asked to try to shape very, very early doors, what I'm sharing there. So not something we've been able to go and engage with too many people on yet. It's something we've been doing in the past few weeks. But we've been asked by a number of MPs and council CEOs, so the council CEOs from Barrow, Copeland and Allerdale, to start looking at the development of an entity. It's not something that BECBC will run, at least I don't think it is. We're being seen as a trusted organisation to help develop this new model. And essentially what that's all about is if there's a large development to take place in this part of the world, that what we do is shape in the best possible way to ensure that the most economic opportunity associated with it on behalf of these communities is actually secured. So that's economic opportunity for the supply chain. That's the opportunities that exist as a result of that investment being here. So those sort of spin-offs, the attraction of new companies by this area, developing a reputation and a brand for being clean energy. That's about skills and the development of the right skills in our young people, but also people that are looking to retrain and so on. So it's that kind of, how do you ensure that if something that potentially could be worth, say, 10 to 20 billion, that you can actually maximise that investment, similar to what happened at London 2012 in the east of England. They didn't just build an Olympic park. What they did was they built an Olympic park, and it was part of transformation, and it was economically massive for that part of the country, which previously was a challenged part of the country. There'll be more to follow on that, because it is very early days, but we did want to flag it up early doors. A couple of other new things that we're doing is setting up a net zero subgroup. You know, we hear so much about net zero and the government's push for net zero. Now that comes with, you know, different business opportunities. You know, what does the UK achieving net zero on CO2 really look like? You know, it's a massive change. You know, taking gas and oil and all these different things out of the mix and replacing them with something else, be that carbon capture and storage, be that new nuclear, be that hydrogen. So, you know, many different opportunities coming out there. So Charlotte from the board has just set up this net zero subgroup, and that starts later in the year. Also, just picking up again on the place agenda, and anybody familiar with the nuclear sector deal, we facilitated last year a workshop on the sector deal, and we're going to do a follow-up in September. We've been engaging with the NDA on it, and it looks at some of the different mechanisms that the NDA are using or are going to use moving forward in terms of engaging with the market. And we've also been talking to Sellafield about that as well. So that'll happen in September, and that'll come out soon. And again, it's all about what do those routes to market look like, in particular in that innovation space, technology development, and so on and so forth. I guess the last one that I just wanted to raise, or two things I wanted to raise. One just on different things in terms of things that the members can do together. So one thing about being involved in a cluster, it's not just about the links into the sort of those big anchor institutions that I've just been talking about, but it's also about how members can trade with each other, how members can sell services to each other, and so on and so forth. And Peter Fleming, with folks from the BSG, has been developing an idea around a trading vehicle, something that can help bring members together, that can help sell services to larger organisations, but again, potentially sell services to each other. So that's something that we're doing in that space. And then finally, there's quite a bit of press around, or certainly locally, on what we do with Japan, and just bringing it back to that point that I made before about the Fukushima site and the folks at TEPCO. It's an international market that for a lot of the sort of technology businesses in particular in our membership have ambitions for, or already operating in, and it's a growing market as well. So we're doing all we can to link in with the right organisations over there. So the NDF, who are the equivalent of Sellafield, NDA, TEPCO, who are the equivalent of Sellafield. We've got a member called Marubeni, who are a trading house, who act as like a link between the two in terms of bringing the two together. Last slide, because I know I'm going on a bit, guys, and thank you for taking the time to listen. There's a lot about the here and now as well, and this is about the work that Liz Bow and Hazel do for us, which is that constant scouring and trawling of opportunities that exist that are out there right now. And what they try to do is ensure that we've got a really good handle of what you as members are looking for. So what are the things that you provide as services? So there's a big piece here about you guys providing information. so that we know where to be looking. Scouring all the variety of different procurement websites and procurement notices that are out there, and bringing those into one place, into the website, and making different members aware of them. And I think as well as that, there's also that direct, if we're aware of something that is very specific to one or two of our members, then we'll contact you directly to let you know about that. And there's a number in the bullets there of the different types of organisations that are out there. So although now is a really challenging time, of course, economically, there's still a lot of organisations out there, especially public funded ones, that are spending lots of money. So we're constantly doing all we can to make sure that members are aware of these different opportunities, where these different funding routes are. So I didn't really want to say more than that in terms of setting the scene, but I'm kind of hoping this conversation that we can have now is, get some feedback, ideas from members, things that you think that we could be doing that we're perhaps not, any of the things that you've heard of that you're interested in and want to know a little bit more about, and actually might want to get engaged with as well. I think the more we can do to engage members that aren't sort of sat in the board but have still got lots to contribute, then we're really keen to help ensure that that happens. And that, Andrew, if I start my sharing, is kind of all I wanted to sort of put forward at this point.
All right. Thank you, Ivan. So, I mean, Claire Louise Chapman, you did ask a question just about whether the Cumbria Community Client Entity was a wealth programme. Diane has put an answer in the chat. I don't know whether, Ivan, you've got any particular response on that.
You want me to explain? Do you want me to explain?
Yeah, go for it, Claire Louise.
That's great, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think Diane and I kind of had a little mini chat there anyway, but essentially we've been talking a lot about the Preston model, if some people are familiar with that. So it's around sense of place. And, that's a lot about what this group is around, isn't it? It's creating that sense of place where it's interconnected, local businesses supported, into trading. But yeah, so when Diane was saying it's about having that voice to the bigger companies, that makes sense. So it's just, yes, that sounds pretty, if that's what that is about, Ivan, that's then yeah, that's that kind of model, isn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely some similarities. I don't think there's an exact replica, albeit what happened in London 2012. I think there's some similarities, and we're really learning as we go along. So I am really not an expert in this at all, but just trying to help bring people together. The nub of it is if there's going to be a significant investment made. And we should never assume that these things are an absolute given. So part of this is helping to ensure that that investment actually happens in the first place. So demonstrating to the investors, and in this case, the investors will be central government and sort of private equity sort of markets as well, that this is a socially outstanding investment to make. So not only would you get, for example, a field of windmills, providing clean energy, or a large nuclear power station providing clean energy, but what you could also get is an investment linked to that development that actually delivers on beneficial outcomes in the local community. And in many respects, I think we'll have some similarities to the great work that Sellafield have been doing on social impact. It's about how do we sweat every last pound for all it's worth. So without sort of having a dig at them, when the new gen sort of setup happened and there was a team set up in Manchester, really, I guess we as an organisation, we as a community should have been in a position where we worked in a better relationship with them, so that it was a no-brainer that it would have been Carlisle or somewhere else in actual Cumbria, and actually work with them to understand how can we make that happen, because there'll be some good reasons why, but I guess it's in terms of how do we set off at the outset together to actually have something that actually lands in a certain way.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's about the interconnectedness, isn't it? Which makes it a little bit more complicated, but ultimately is the way that things should be done if we're going to be sensible about it. So that's good.
Diane, you wanted to join in this conversation just before we go to the breakout rooms.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something briefly, because one of the things I've found since coming on the board, I had no idea of how much work Ivan puts in the background, and the work he's done on making this happen has been absolutely brilliant. And we don't always see it as members. So I just wanted to say thank you to him personally, because I do know the work and effort that he puts into it.
All right. So like I said, we're going to move on to the breakout rooms, and we have got breakout rooms that are pre-allocated with a member from each board. So we've got Diane, Ivan, Peter Fleming, Ruth Selleck, and Tom Scaife, who are all going to essentially chair a meeting room. So I'm going to open those up now, and I'll be allocating you fairly randomly into one of those rooms. So just bear with me a second. There'll be a request to join that room, which comes up on screen. Just follow the instructions and you'll be placed into that room, and we'll run this for 10 minutes, and then we'll all come back, and then we'll do we'll shake up the rooms and go into to a more general networking session. So here we go, opening up the rooms now. So welcome back, everybody. I hope you found that to be a useful discussion. I know time is always short in these things, but I'm sure any of those board members will be more than happy for the conversation to carry on. So please do keep any thoughts or suggestions going, and share that with anybody on the board. Just a quick reminder that before we close the session, there is going to be a quick slot for any member news. If anyone's got any good news stories that they want to share, or any other business, any events that might be happening that might be of interest to other members, then please let me know in the chat. But right now we're going to go straight into the networking session, which we know is always popular. So I'm just going to recreate all those meeting rooms, and we are going to go, we've got 26 people. So we'll go into groups of 3 or 4 into each room, and this will be for 15 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you found the networking good. We've kept that to the 15 minutes, and we're all running to time. So I'm going to just share my screen, because I've not been told of any other business. But if there is any other business or any success stories that people do wish to share, then please let me know. In fact, if you want, you can unmute your mic. But just before you do, remember, those of you who might be returning to work, there are members within the cluster who may be able to provide support and services to help you with doing so safely. So we've got obviously furniture and equipment, screens, hand dispensers, PPE masks, signage, safety supplies and sanitizers, but also professional services. Obviously, businesses going through challenging times, so whether it's legal and HR advice or financial advice, health and safety support, then obviously we've got that capability within the cluster as well. I'm going to put the Mentee slide up, because it'd be great to get your feedback. I can see there's some positive messages coming through in the chat, which is always grateful. But if you can, please provide feedback through the Mentee app at mentee.com. This is anonymous, and just tap in the code 611945. That will tag in today's meeting, and your feedback, obviously in line with the quick poll that we put out earlier, will be really helpful, just as we get to that stage where we're looking at alternative formats and how future events might be run. So I've got a quick post from Quentin, who, I'm just sorry, my chat's moved as a few things have moved around the screen. Quentin, do you want to just explain what you mean by your post there, the Cumbria 360 survey, very quickly?
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, very quickly. I'm running a Cumbria-wide survey to help employers get to understand a bit more about how people are thinking about their work, community and home dynamic, to add to ongoing research. It's free. Please get involved. You can find out more on my website. We're getting all sorts of interest from MPs, from NDA, from councils, right the way down to individuals like Diane, who has completed it. So join the party, please. The more the merrier.
Great, thank you, Quentin. Peter Fleming, you've just posted something. Do you want to very quickly just explain that to people in the room?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. Just to share, there's a few questions about the BSG sort of collaboration project that Ivan shared at the beginning. So if anybody wants to know any more information or just interested to know a bit more about it or even get involved, I've just shared my email address and mobile number on the chat. So feel free to get in touch.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, I think that pretty much takes us to the end. So Ivan, do you want to just close out the session and round off with some final words?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Not a lot to say here other than thanks to everybody for taking the time out. I know that in particular at the moment with everything that people have got going on, this is smack bang in the middle of what would have been normal summer holidays as well for people. So I just wanted to thank people for contributing to the conversation. I know that it wasn't as exciting as hearing from a big spending organisation. You know, you kind of came and got involved today knowing that it was a conversation essentially about the cluster and about each other. So thanks everybody for taking the time, and I hope everybody stays safe and well, and look forward to seeing you next time.
All right, thanks everybody. Appreciate you joining us today. More events are scheduled for the next few weeks, so do look out for emails that come from Hazel. And obviously we've recorded today's session, and that will be added to the Cluster YouTube channel over the next few days. So thanks again for joining us. We'll see you at the next event.